Have you ever asked yourself why the people who hurt you seem to move on so effortlessly? Why they look happier, more confident, maybe even more successful after they betrayed, manipulated, or mistreated you? Why is it that those who caused pain walk away unscathed while you're left to pick up the emotional pieces? It's easy to feel confused, angry, even defeated. But what if the story isn't over? What if karma doesn't strike with thunder and lightning, but with silence and precision? You see, karma isn't always obvious. It doesn't always come in the form of lost jobs or public disgrace. Sometimes it operates beneath the surface, inside the mind, within the soul, and through quiet life patterns that slowly unravel over time. If you've ever been wronged and wondered whether life truly balances itself out, this message is for you. Before we begin, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, a space for healing, self-mastery, and deep transformation. We don't chase revenge here, we rise beyond it. Let's explore how karma reveals itself, not through drama, but through truth. 1. The mask of false happiness. It's a curious thing to witness. Someone causes pain, walks away from a relationship, betrays trust, or wounds another's spirit, and suddenly, their life looks better. They post more often. They seem more vibrant. Smiles stretch across their faces, captions are filled with bold affirmations, and every story or update screams, "I'm thriving." At first glance, it can feel confusing, even infuriating. You might think, did I mean nothing? Did they really move on that quickly? Did they actually win? But what you're witnessing isn't peace, it's performance. When a person is genuinely content, they don't need to announce it to the world. Real peace is quiet. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need applause. It simply is. What you're often seeing in these exaggerated displays is a psychological defense mechanism. It's what Stoics might call emotional noise, a cover for internal chaos. The more a person has to prove they are happy, the more likely it is that they're not. In fact, these amplified expressions of joy often signal something very different beneath the surface: guilt, insecurity, and the fear of being perceived as the villain. Let's break this down. When someone knows, even subconsciously, that they've hurt another person, that truth doesn't simply vanish. It lingers in silence, in solitude, in sleepless nights. But instead of confronting those feelings head-on, many people opt for emotional denial. They craft an illusion, not just for others, but for themselves. Social media becomes a stage. Smiles become props. And moving on becomes a performance, not a process. Ironically, the louder they present their happiness, the more they reveal their inner disquiet. Think about it. When have you ever seen someone truly at peace feel the need to convince the world of it? Genuine healing is quiet. It happens away from the spotlight. It doesn't need hashtags or highlight reels. This is where the Stoic perspective offers powerful clarity. Stoicism teaches that emotional equilibrium isn't dependent on external perception. It's not about looking fine. It's about being grounded, inwardly and silently. The person who is truly content doesn't chase attention or approval. They don't weaponize happiness as a shield. They simply live it because they've earned it, through self-reflection, acceptance, and internal work. In contrast, someone who skips that process, who chooses escape over introspection, ends up playing a character rather than embodying truth, and characters can only hold the mask for so long. Eventually, cracks begin to show. The energy it takes to maintain a facade starts to drain them. Relationships lose depth. Loneliness creeps in, even in crowded rooms, and the very audience they sought to impress begins to disappear, because performance is not sustainable. And karma, in its subtle wisdom, always exposes what is false. So when you see someone showcasing their joy loudly after hurting you, remember, that is not proof of peace. It is evidence of unrest. Your role is not to match their performance, question your worth, or long for closure. Your role is to anchor into your truth, walk the quiet path of healing, and trust that in time, what is real will remain, and what is false will fade. Karma isn't loud, and neither is real happiness. Don't be fooled by noise. Listen to silence. That's where the truth always lives. 2. Slow unraveling, the loss of support. When we think of karma, we often imagine something dramatic, instant payback, a public fall from grace, or a life-shaking event that brings someone face to face with the consequences of their actions. But, in reality, karma rarely arrives with a bang. It unfolds in silence, slowly, softly, almost invisibly. It is not revenge, it's balance. And that balance often reveals itself through erosion, not explosion. One of the clearest signs that someone is facing karmic repercussions is not through obvious punishment, but through gradual loss. Loss of stability, loss of trust, loss of support. People who act carelessly toward others, those who manipulate, betray, or hurt without accountability, may appear to move on effortlessly. But over time, something deeper begins to shift in their lives. Not all at once, and not in ways that outsiders might notice immediately, but little by little the world around them begins to respond to their inner state. Here's how. The dimming of opportunities. Someone who consistently acts out of selfishness or disregard for others may initially find themselves riding a wave of success. They get the job, the deal, the attention. But slowly doors that once opened with ease begin to stick. Opportunities slip through their fingers, not because they aren't talented or capable, but because trust and integrity were compromised. People begin to sense it. Energy never lies. Eventually, professional or social circles pick up on the subtleties, a lack of accountability, an absence of humility, a pattern of burned bridges. And so chances begin to fade, not through sabotage, but through karmic alignment. The quiet exit of genuine friends. At first, they may surround themselves with people, loud groups, new connections, exciting social scenes. But over time, the relationships that once felt secure and comforting begin to dwindle. Old friends check in less. Texts go unanswered. Support systems dry up. Not because of external gossip or punishment, but because authenticity attracts and dishonesty repels. People may not always articulate why they feel off around someone, but they feel it. And that feeling leads them to slowly step back. The invisible cracks in their world. On the outside, everything may still look fine, but inside their life, things start to feel unstable. Decisions don't bring the same satisfaction. Relationships lack depth. Loneliness sets in, even when surrounded by people. This is karma, not as wrath, but as wisdom. It doesn't crash through the door. It removes the furniture piece by piece. It doesn't shout. It subtracts, quietly. Why this happens? The world reflects who we are. When someone devalues others, acts from ego, or treats people as disposable, they create energetic ripples. These ripples return, not as punishment, but as echoes. The person who once dismissed others eventually finds themselves dismissed. The one who took support for granted begins to feel unsupported. The very pillars they once stood on, trust, connection, respect, begin to decay. And the worst part, it doesn't happen in a way they can easily identify or fix. It's subtle, slow, and deeply frustrating. Because you can't rebuild what you refused to value when it mattered most. The Stoic perspective. From a Stoic lens, we understand that justice isn't always visible. We don't seek revenge because we know the Universe maintains equilibrium without our interference. Our task isn't to watch for their fall, it's to rise ourselves. As they lose what they once took for granted, we build what they never truly had: inner stability, dignity, and peace. So if someone who wronged you seems untouched by consequence, look again, not with anger, but with awareness. Karma is working, not by crashing their world, but by quietly dimming its light. 3. Obsession with the past. Sometimes the most powerful karmic consequence is not what happens outside a person, it's what happens within. Long after someone has wronged you, they might act like they've moved on. They go quiet for a while. Then suddenly they resurface, not with an apology, not with reconciliation, but through vague online posts, cryptic song lyrics, or indirect messages aimed at no one and everyone. You notice it. They reference things you used to say, share things that feel oddly specific, or drop hints that seem to echo your shared past. This isn't coincidence. It's karmic weight making itself known. When someone inflicts pain, whether through betrayal, manipulation, abandonment, or dishonesty, they often attempt to bury it quickly. They distract themselves, fill their lives with noise, and do everything they can to avoid sitting still. But here's the truth. The mind never forgets what the heart has suppressed. Unresolved guilt doesn't just disappear. It lingers. It waits. And eventually, it speaks. Not out loud, but through actions, through patterns, through obsession. The Stoics believed that our conscience is the ultimate judge. No external punishment can match the unrest we experience when we're out of alignment with our own integrity. And for those who have wronged others without reflection or repentance, that unrest doesn't fade, it festers. The signs of this inner turmoil are subtle, but unmistakable. Indirect communication. They won't say your name, but their words point toward you. They'll share quotes about lost connections, regret, or misunderstood souls. These posts aren't meant to open dialogue. They're meant to relieve pressure. They're speaking to themselves more than to anyone else because deep down, something inside still needs closure. Repetitive behavior. They bring up similar themes in conversations, repeat stories from the past, or engage in new relationships that look a lot like the one they destroyed. This repetition isn't random. It's the mind trying to make sense of something unresolved. Defensive posturing. Even when unprovoked, they feel the need to justify themselves. They create narratives that cast them as the misunderstood hero or the quiet victim. But this over-explaining is another symptom of internal guilt, a subconscious attempt to rewrite the past. This mental fixation becomes a prison. And unlike external consequences, it's one that no one can see, but they feel it every day. Their mind becomes cluttered with what-ifs, should-haves, and memories they try to forget but cannot escape. Ironically, the very people who seem most indifferent may be the ones most haunted. It's not their silence that reveals the truth. It's the patterns in their noise. Karma, in this case, is psychological. It doesn't take away opportunities or relationships right away. It invades the peace they thought they could fake. Every time they see someone who reminds them of you, every song that recalls a memory, every situation that mirrors their past behavior, karma is speaking. But here's where the Stoic path diverges. We don't celebrate their unrest. We don't wait for it or wish for it. We simply observe and let go. The fixation they feel, that's no longer your burden. You've chosen the higher road, one of healing, stillness, and forward motion. Let karma whisper to them through memory. Let their conscience echo what you no longer need to say. And while they stay stuck in the past, you remain rooted in the present, growing, building, becoming. That is your justice. That is your freedom. 4. Distrust in others and themselves. One of the most profound and often invisible consequences of hurting others is what it does to a person's own ability to trust, not just trust in the world, but trust in themselves. At first glance, it may seem like the one who caused harm has moved on unscathed. They may enter new relationships, build new connections, and continue on as if nothing ever happened. But karma doesn't always arrive through the actions of others. It often appears in the form of internal fragmentation. And one of its most silent, painful forms is this: the gradual erosion of trust, outward and inward. When someone betrays another person, especially someone who was kind, loyal, or vulnerable with them, they don't just walk away from a relationship, they walk away from the integrity of their own word. Whether they admit it or not, there is now a fracture in how they view themselves. Over time, this fracture creates uncertainty. They start questioning people's motives. They expect betrayal in situations where there's no threat. They read too deeply into harmless messages, suspect dishonesty and sincerity, and hold back emotionally even when the moment is safe. Why? Because guilt warps perception. People who know they've acted without honor often begin to project those same behaviors onto others. It's a subconscious defense mechanism. They assume that others are like them, that they too will lie, manipulate, or walk away. And so, rather than risk being hurt the way they once hurt someone else, they build walls. They withdraw emotionally. They become overly suspicious or controlling, all in the name of being careful. But the irony is heartbreaking. They are not protecting themselves from others. They are protecting themselves from the version of themselves they refuse to face. This is karma, not as punishment, but as a mirror. Because the mind, when burdened by guilt, cannot differentiate between real threats and imagined ones. And so, they live in a constant state of low-level fear. Not the kind that keeps you up at night screaming, but the kind that erodes your ability to feel safe with anyone. They begin to sabotage good relationships. They push away people who actually care. They create distance where closeness could grow. And all the while they struggle with an underlying fear. What if they do to me what I did to someone else? This internal loop becomes exhausting. They don't trust others. They don't trust their own judgment. They second-guess every emotional decision they make, unsure whether their instincts are guided by truth or by guilt. And because they haven't done the work to process what they've done, haven't made amends, taken full accountability, or genuinely evolved, they become trapped in a psychological prison of mistrust and fear. The Stoic path teaches us that peace comes from alignment, living in accordance with one's values. When someone steps out of that alignment, even if the world doesn't punish them, their own mind will. So what does this mean for you, the one who was wronged? It means you don't need to retaliate. You don't need to prove anything. Because karma isn't always a moment, it's a mindset. While you continue your journey, healing, reflecting, growing, they remain stuck in a world where trust is impossible. Because deep down, they know what they're capable of. And until they confront that version of themselves, every relationship they enter will be haunted by what they've never healed. So hold your peace. Focus on your evolution. Let their mistrust be their teacher, while your clarity becomes your freedom. 5. Mirrored pain. When life replays their choices. One of the most poetic and profound forms of karma doesn't come in the form of punishment, loss, or isolation. It comes in the form of reflection. Life has an uncanny way of holding up a mirror to each of us, not to shame, but to reveal. For those who have mistreated others, betrayed trust, manipulated emotions, taken advantage of kindness, this mirror often comes in the form of new relationships that reflect back the very behaviors they once inflicted. It doesn't happen immediately. In fact, It's often after the dust has settled, after they've convinced themselves they've escaped the consequences, that this karmic reflection begins to take shape. They meet someone exciting, charismatic, intense. And while it all feels perfect, but slowly things begin to shift. This new person might start to act unpredictably. They may ignore messages for hours or days. They might manipulate with silence, withdraw affection, or offer love in inconsistent doses. The same confusion, pain, and anxiety they once caused someone else is now being returned to them. Not by force, not by vengeance, but by design. This is the karmic echo. Not to hurt, but to reveal. Because only when they feel the impact of their past behavior can they truly understand its weight. From the outside, it may look like just another relationship gone wrong. But internally, something is breaking open. They begin to notice the patterns. They hear themselves asking questions that once went unanswered. They wonder what they did to deserve this. And in that moment, karma isn't punishing, it's teaching. It's guiding them to see themselves, not as the hero of their story, but as someone capable of harm. Not to destroy their identity, but to offer the rare and necessary gift of perspective. The Stoics believed that true growth comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from embracing the lessons it brings. And this kind of relational mirroring is one of the most powerful teachers. It forces a person to pause and ask, is this what I made someone else feel? Did I once use love this carelessly? Have I ever ignored someone's pain like this? These are uncomfortable questions, but they are essential. Because without reflection, there is no transformation. The beauty of karma is that it doesn't seek revenge. It seeks restoration. It aligns experience with behavior, not to destroy, but to awaken. The person who once dismissed your feelings now finds themselves craving emotional clarity. The one who ignored your boundaries now feels theirs constantly crossed. The one who walked away without remorse now watches someone walk away from them without explanation. And yet this isn't about celebration. This isn't your victory parade, because you've already moved forward, you've already grown. From a higher perspective, this isn't about punishment, this is about balance. Life gives all of us the opportunity to evolve, and sometimes evolution begins with pain that mirrors our past. So what do you do while they face this reflection? Nothing. You continue building, you continue healing, you continue living in alignment with your values, your peace, and your purpose. The karmic mirror will show them who they've been, but your growth will show them what they could have become if they had chosen better. And that realization, that's the moment they truly meet karma. Here's the truth. You don't need to act as karma. You don't need revenge, because karma is patient and precise. Your only responsibility? Grow, heal, rise. Let the pain be your teacher, not your identity. Turn what was meant to break you into the very foundation of your strength. Don't look back to punish. Look forward to transform. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and stay grounded in the quiet power of becoming. Your evolution is the only justice that matters. Let karma handle the rest.